In my last YouTube video, I received a comment from a guy that goes by the name of Lights and Tones, who asked, I wonder how you spend a photography outing when you only have 1 to 2 hours. Most of us live very busy lives with work, family, etc. Sometimes we don't get more than that. How can you switch off and zoom into photography/nature in such a short time frame? It would be interesting to hear your thoughts, advice, methods on this, maybe in an upcoming video. Well, I responded to his comments, but I also thought, as he rightly said, this would make a great video idea because many people nowadays are busy. So I thought I'd make a video on this to help those of you who live busy lives and see if this will give you some ideas for when time is short and you want to go out and do photography. Now, this comment has come at a very timely time because next week I'm going to be hosting my next Learning to See course, which is all about this. It's about slowing down, immersing yourself in the environment, and finding things to photograph even when you have a short space of time. So if you're interested in joining us on that course, I'll share more information with you at the end of the video. But for now, let's get on to sharing some ideas with you of how you can make the most of having a very short time. And I'm going to do this by using some of my recent videos as examples. Now, it may surprise you, but the vast majority of the videos that you see on this channel are filmed within the 1 to 2 hour time frame. Of course, when I go away on these adventures to different parts of Scotland, they can often be day trips, but all the ones that I film in my local area tend to be 1 to 2 hours. Now let me give you some examples about this. Now my last YouTube video, which this comment was on, was about me cycling to my local lake to do photography. Now that video was filmed within 2 hours, including travel time. So it took me about 25 minutes to cycle to the lake. It's a 20-minute cycle usually, add 5 minutes for filming. Then when I arrived at the lake, I found a spot that interested me. I stopped, parked my bike up, sat down, took some deep breaths and began to observe the view in front of me. And that's the first 2 tips I'd like to share with you here. Regardless of whether time is short or not, I'd highly recommend when you get onto location to simply take a slow deep breath through your nose. Now you may think this has got nothing to do with photography, but you'll be surprised how just taking a breath allows you to settle into the scene. So if you're somebody who has a lot going on in life, a lot of responsibilities, and you're feeling a bit stressed, just simply taking a deep breath when you get on location will just help you to relax into that moment. You'll then see in that video after I do this that I'm sitting and admiring the view for about 5 minutes. Now I sit for 5 minutes because quite frankly I'm pretty exhausted after my cycle and I want to get my breath back. But as I'm sitting, drinking my tea and observing the view, I'm also taking it in and I'm starting to notice what it is that interests me. And you'll find if you just stop in one spot and you observe it for a couple of minutes, you will notice something that catches your eye. In this case, I was very drawn to the motion of the water combined with the raindrops. And then I spent the whole time I was there in this one small spot photographing these raindrops. And that process took me about 15 to 20 minutes. And I find when I focus on one thing and I really begin to observe it and remove all those other distractions, that it really allows me to slow down and connect in that moment, even when time is limited. And then in that video, as I got up to pack up and potentially move to another spot, I noticed the tree where my bag was had another photographic opportunity. And then I spent about another 15 minutes photographing this, before spending 10 minutes talking to camera, finishing off the video, and 15 minutes cycling home. It's quicker to cycle home than to cycle there because it's uphill on the way and downhill on the way back. So as you can see, the whole process of that video, from me leaving my house, cycling there, doing all of the photography and filming and cycling home again, as well as taking time to connect and see things, took less than 2 hours. Another little tip here as well, I think the key is, where possible, to get your camera out as quickly as possible. I remember working with a mentorship client once who would regularly go out with his camera in his bag and never take it out. And he often wondered why he never came back with any images. And of course, there could be a number of reasons for this. But one suggestion I gave him was, as soon as you get onto location, take your camera out. And it was amazing how just having his camera in his hands gave him the incentive to actually start creating images. So if your time is limited, get your camera out as quickly as possible. And once you create one image, It's amazing how that lens leads to another one, another one, another one. But if you're on location for like half an hour and you still haven't taken your camera out, it's reducing your chances of making the most of that time, if that time you intended to be creating photographs. Because of course there's a fine line here of just simply being in nature and enjoying the moment. But if your intention is to slow down and create images, get your camera out as quickly as you can, and you'll be surprised how just that little step makes a huge difference. And another video that I want to share with you is another recent one. This one was where I only had 50 minutes until sunset. I was still at home. I very nearly talked myself out of going out with my camera because time was so limited. But I decided to go anyway. It took me 15 minutes to walk to my local woods, and then what I did is I did a short loop. And this is another thing I quite often do when time is limited. I will choose a walk from my home or my local neighbourhood, which is a relatively short loop. And by a relatively short loop, I mean if you have an hour to do photography, it should take you no more than about 20 minutes to walk the whole loop. And I say this because it gives you plenty of time to stop and create images. And again in that video I had my camera out and around my neck, which meant as soon as I found something to photograph, which in the first case was a really small piece of ice on a leaf, I already had my camera out, so it was easy to lift it up and start trying to photograph it. And I only spent about 5 minutes on that little piece of ice, but I was amazed by the few images that I was able to create and how creative they turned out to be. I then walked another 5 minutes down the path and I stopped at another spot where there was some beautiful orange leaves and water droplets on the branches, and I spent about 10 minutes here creating images of the leaves and the water droplets and just getting fully immersed in this small tree that was in the woodland before ending my walk. And that actual walk itself was a very quick walk. It was about a 15-minute walk, this loop I was doing. Like I say, 5 minutes on the ice, 10 minutes on the tree with the leaves. So add that up, you've got half an hour. So in half an hour, I created some beautiful images that I really, really loved. Something else I'd recommend to help you to connect is to eliminate all distractions. And one thing that we find very distracting nowadays is our smartphone. So unless you're using your phone specifically to do photography, I'd highly recommend turning it on to silent and putting it in a pocket or in your backpack. And if you're somebody that gets a little bit anxious around time and you're worried that you're going to be home late, for instance, if you've got to be back for something, what I've done a couple of times when I've been in that situation is to put an alarm on my phone to warn me when my time is coming to an end and to give me sufficient time to either walk back home or get in the car and drive home. But again, I'll put the alarm on and put the phone away so that I'm not distracted by notifications and other things coming through. And if you find that you've done a deep breath and you're looking around and you still can't find something to photograph, you may wish to consider engaging your other senses. I've been surprised by the amount of times I've stopped at a spot and I've heard something, whether it's something like a bird calling or a water droplet hitting the water, and it's drawn my eye and my attention to something that I hadn't noticed before, and suddenly I get so mesmerised by that thing that I very quickly begin to photograph it. So I hope these just give you some ideas of ways that you can connect more with your location when time is limited, and so that you can really embrace the photography. Now, I mentioned at the start that next week I'm hosting an online course called Learning to See. I created this course last year after doing over 6 months of mindful photography practice, and I realised that by becoming very mindful in my approach, I was able to not only see more photographic opportunities, but create images that spoke much more deeply to me. And in doing so, I began to love almost every photograph I created. And because this mindful photographic approach and the art of observation has been so transformative for my photography, I wanted to create an online course where I can connect with you guys personally in a small group of like-minded people over Zoom for a week to teach you some of these things so you can experience these benefits for yourself. The course is delivered over a week as opposed to several weeks, purely because I want to show you that these exercises that I'm going to share with you are so quick and easy to do that you can implement them into your day-to-day life. So even when you're doing things like driving to work or out walking the dog, you can be practicing your observation skills, which means when you do go out with your camera, you will see so many more things to photograph and feel so much more connected to what you're photographing as well. So the course begins on Monday the 20th of January and runs to Monday the 27th of January. Monday to Friday, there'll be 1 hour Zoom sessions where we'll explore themes such as observing the light, looking at the details, relationships and connections, movement and emotion. There'll then be a weekend photography exercise for you to enjoy, where you bring everything you've learned during the week together to create some images. And then the following Monday, we meet again as a group to share the images we've created. I've done 2 cohorts of this course so far, and there's been some great testimonials shared at the end of it, which you can read on my website if you'd like to do so. So if you'd like to join us, full details can be found up here in the description box below. And as of recording this video, there is a few spaces left, so if you'd like to join us, it'd be lovely to have you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful in giving you some ideas of what to do when time is limited. If you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in an upcoming video, please let me know in the comments below. And if time and opportunity allows, I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. I'll see you again on Sunday for another photographic adventure. And this week, I'm going for a twilight photo walk around my hometown, where I create some creative images of the new moon, some chimney stacks, some trees, a waterfall, and some blurred swans. And there may be a Northern Lights display as well. You'll have to tune in to find out what I mean by that. I'll see you on Sunday.